Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me. Hello, happy day. And I don't know if you knew this, but I have a very gigantic ego. And I was thinking today about how so often I want help from people, but I want to tell them how to help me. And I was thinking back to when I first started going to my psychiatrist. So there was a period of time. So I had my stroke in 2021. I started seeing my psychiatrist in 2024. And I hate when I start trying to think of the dates because I think that I'm wrong. But anyway, my point is, like, I started seeing the psychiatrist um, a couple years after I had my stroke, when I finally got through the denial phase and I started going through the grieving phase. I started seeing this psychiatrist that I see now. And my ego was like out of control, where I feel like I was telling her what was wrong with me, but I felt too smart for her advice. I mean, that sounds terrible, but I felt like when I was waiting to hear her suggestions or listening to her questions about like how to self-reflect, um, I felt like I could predict the direction that she was going in instead of being open-minded and willing to let her help me and with her experience, with her education. And eventually I felt fixed, which is inevitably what happens when I start participating in talk therapy. I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I feel better, and I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to say when I come to the appointment. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. And what happened with me is that I eventually started sinking again. Emotionally, I started sinking back into this pit of helplessness, hopelessness. And I called her again and scheduled an appointment. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, again, I hate talking about the timing of things, but it was like months later. It was like 6 months later, something like that. And I went back to her and I'm like, I'm not fixed. I'm still struggling with fear and desperation, not knowing, not being able to envision a future for myself with this disability, having had to leave my job and all of this stuff. Like, I just kept getting to this point where I was feeling like my life was imploding, like it was crumbling down upon me. And I said, I'm going to do something different this time. I'm not going to try to predict how you're going to help me, and I'm not going to try to tell you how to help me. And I remember her kind of looking at me like, Um, maybe not agreeing that I was doing that the first time around, or she didn't notice that I was doing that, or whatever. She didn't agree that that's how the first sessions went. But I really did, and she probably didn't notice because the change had to be between my ears. It's like, was I completely willing to let go and accept help? And I think the first time that I went to my psychiatrist, I wasn't willing to accept help completely. And once again, another parallel with my sobriety because I had gone to detox twice. And the first time I wasn't willing to accept help fully. That's funny. I never noticed that parallel as well. But yeah, it happened the same way where the second time I went to detox, I was like, I'm going to do this differently this time. I'm not going to tell you how to help me. I'm going to let go and let in help. Um, so back to the psychiatrist, and it's been different this time, approaching her with open-mindedness and willingness. So the topic I wanted to talk about was when self-sufficiency fails us. So I've said a lot of times recently that we're raised our whole lives to become independent and self-sufficient. And then I feel like it's like I backed myself into this trap where self-sufficiency, that feeling of that pride of being independent and wanting to be able to be like, look, mom and dad, look what I did. Um, it can be a strength, but for me, it became a way of isolating myself. Um, I started to refuse help. It morphed from being able to say, look, I can do it all by myself to I don't want your help. I want to show that I can do it myself. And living, just generally living, fell into trap, that trap of self-sufficiency. And when I finally got to the point where I was desperate and realized that I needed help, I couldn't do it on my own. Um, I wanted help, but I wasn't willing to surrender. Um, that was like that middle ground where I'm like, I want help, but I'm going to tell you exactly how to help me. I want people to fix my pain without challenging my thinking. I want advice from people, but I only want to hear advice that I agree with. You know, I can't say that my higher power falls into that same trap because I don't understand my relationship with my higher power enough right now. I hear a lot of people in my sobriety program say that they had foxhole prayers where it was like, the prayers are going to go my way and on my own timeline, and I only want help when I'm desperate. And that's not, uh, for me, that's not prayer. It's also not surrender. It's a negotiation. And recovery only happened for me when I became teachable. And that was when I was just absolutely reached a dead end and or trapped myself inside that corner of self-sufficiency, failed self-sufficiency. And the only way out, the key to getting out of that corner, was surrender. I hear people in the program all the time say my best thinking got me here, but I can't see that. I mean, I didn't see that until later, that if my own thinking could have solved my alcoholism, I would have solved it already. Um, Step one of my program teaches me that I'm powerless. And that's the only way to fully accept help, to fully surrender is to say, I don't have control over this and I need guidance. Step two, I need guidance beyond what I can think between my ears. And then step three asks me to trust that guidance, to be all in. As I talked about recently in my trip to San Francisco, that first trip in my sobriety, when I had to 100% be all in on my trust of that guidance. And that helped me to not drink that day. And it's helped me to not drink ever since. So recovery in my program requires me to admit that someone else's experience, whoever that may be, um, may be more reliable than my own instincts. That's scary. You know, I have this ego that tells me that I'm the smartest person in the room. Maybe I'm not the smartest person in the room about every topic, but whatever that topic is that I won't surrender, I'm the smartest person in the room about it. So there's a difference between trying to control a situation and thinking that I have all the answers and cooperating with someone else. So control is me saying, I need your help, but I'm going to tell you what I need from you. That's that's what I used to do when I was working, when I was a marketing director. I need your help, but this is what I need from you. Um, Instead of, and I learned this also in my career. There were some people leaders, we'll call them, who would approach you and say, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of one person in particular. I need your help. This is what I need from you. This is what I want it to look like. And anything that is not exactly as I imagine it in my head, I'm going to have you go back and change it at nauseum until you get it exactly like how I'm picturing it in my head. And then there's other people leaders who will say, I need your help. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need your help with. Go forth with your professional experience and create the best version of this that you can based on your experience. And your experience, all I know is that your experience, you're more the experience than me in this topic. So please go forth and knock it out of the park. We're not going to edit it when you bring it back to me. I'm just going to trust that what you're bringing me is the best of the best. Um, that for me is willingness to learn. That is cooperation. What would you suggest that I do? You being the expert. So the control puts me in charge of the help, and cooperation allows me to grow in tandem with you. We learn together, we figure it out together. I'm trusting that you've already been through this, and I want to hear how you do it. So, trusting the process. My sponsor, my sponsors over the past couple years have not always told me exactly what I want to hear. They tell me based on their experience what I might have in store for me, how things are going to work. And I need to just trust the process. I don't have control over how my recovery is going to go. Mine's based on my relationships and my addiction and my experiences. Um, all I can do is listen to other people's experiences and try to learn from them. When I went to all of these doctors for my stroke and my disability, the doctors also absolutely did not always give me the answers I was hoping for most of the time. Um, but I know that the growth that I needed to begin accepting my disability, accepting what my life changed into, I needed discomfort. I needed to go through exactly what I went through in order to get to where I am right now. And I wouldn't have chosen this path for myself. Um, but I think sometimes the help that I needed doesn't look like the help that I imagined. I can't control it. I have to trust the process before I trust the outcome. And that was really, really hard. And and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it in both sobriety and stroke recovery. I recognize that, and this is what it all comes back to, I think, that self-reliance has its limits. Um, it's useful for learning a new skill, trying to figure out a problem. Like when I was going to all those doctors, I had to have self-reliance in order to do all the research for what doctors should I be going to and making the appointments and doing all the freaking documentation and all of the insurance, the disability insurance and the social security. Like that stuff was hard and I needed self-reliance, and it was hard just to add the cherry on top in a negative way. Um, because of my disability, it was physically painful for me to do the paperwork. Um, but here's the thing. When I was seeing my psychiatrist, she said, "Can somebody help you with the paperwork? Can somebody help?" They could. I think this was my answer. They could, but I want to make sure that it's filled out correctly. Um, that's self-reliance. And I, in the end, I did fill out the paperwork myself and I caused myself more pain. I solved the problem myself and I ended up doing a good job and getting accepted for my disability insurance and all of that stuff. And if I were to go back and do it again, I probably would do it the same way. Um, but there are some things I can't think my way out of. I can't think my way out of my addiction. I can't think my way out of my disability. I can't force my way through some emotional turmoil that can only be resolved by joining forces with somebody else, by working on a relationship with somebody else. I can't fix everything. Some problems require connection and humility, a lot of humility. And some connections require faith. And that all of this can apply to my relationship with my higher power, and it's called faith. And I'm learning that. Um, I'm learning how to let others carry what I can't, and that includes my higher power. Um, I'm learning how to ask for help before I'm desperate, but it's hard. I'm learning how to listen without preparing my rebuttal before the person has even finished what they're trying to say. That is something that happens all the time with me. I'm learning how to accept support from other people without feeling weak, without feeling like I think what I talked to my sponsor about, or my psychiatrist about, she's like, Rachel, we all know that you can do it, but that doesn't mean that you have to do it. That's the difficulty with my disability, is that I can do it and feel terrible and not be able to function the rest of the day, or I can ask for help. And I tend to feel weak. I tend to feel like I want to prove that I can instead of accepting help and claiming that I can't. Um, it's just an interesting battle that continuously goes on between my ears on a daily basis. But sometimes the greatest strength is asking someone else to carry part of the load. And I'm learning how to apply this lesson that I learned in sobriety to my stroke recovery and applying it to relationships, even applying it to parenting, believe it or not, like letting go and letting my kids' problems don't have to be my problems. Their growth is going to happen when I stop insisting that everything happen on my terms. And just as there's a time when I need help, there's a time when they need to learn how to ask for help as well. And that's a hard lesson to learn again as a parent. Um, so self-sufficiency, man, it's something that I think is one of my greatest challenges in my disability. And I'm just going to keep working on it, I guess. I mean, that's what the answer is, to keep practicing it, keep learning how to ask for help from family and friends and doctors and my fellowship, and trust that things are not always going to go the way that I would have chosen for myself. But rarely when I trust the process do things work out worse than how I would have planned it. It's usually better. So that experience, I think, is helping me to trust the process more. Um, and I talked about that a little bit yesterday, that confidence is learned through experience. At least that's how I feel about it. So thanks for listening today, and I will talk to you next time.